Welcome you to our school board meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 8th. Board members present in the boardroom. We have members Wilson, Lessons, Jacobs, Higgins, Donnelly, and Bellamy. Online, we have member Holloman. Also in the boardroom, we have our student representative, Ellie Shaw. We also have Dr. Dina Bishop, our superintendent, and Katie Grant, our secretary. And several staff are also in the room, along with our fabulous guests in the audience. So at this point, will you lead us into the pledge, please? Ms. Shaw?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Land acknowledgement when you're ready.
On behalf of the Anchorage School Board, I want to take a moment to recognize and offer gratitude for the sacred ancestral lands of the Dena'ina people. We acknowledge and appreciate that our offices, facilities, and schools are on these sacred indigenous lands, and we honor the traditional care that has been given to this land throughout generations. We are grateful for the opportunity to grow, learn, work, and create educational communities on this sacred land. We extend continued respect for the many cultures, creativity, and resilience of its indigenous peoples. Chanan.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. So that brings us to our opening statement, and I've pretty much already done it, but I do want to welcome you here tonight and thank you for attending and supporting the Anchorage School District and supporting this board. We thank our students, our parents, teachers, staff, school business partners, and the entire community for your investment in our district with your time, your talent, and your tax dollars. That brings us to item A3, which is the approval of our agenda.
Madam President, I'd like to move the approval of the agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Member Jacobs, thank you. Member Jacobs, second. Moved in second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any opposition to the approval of the agenda? Seeing no opposition, the agenda is approved as presented. Thank you. That brings us to recognitions, item B1. We've been waiting a long time for this, actually. This is our fall 2021 Denali Award winners. We are recognizing them tonight. To Alaskans, Denali means great one, and the Anchorage School District is proud to have employees that display greatness in the areas of achievement, service, and dedication. This is the highest award offered by the district. Twice a year, supervisors submit nominations and a panel of ASD employees selects a number of coworkers and teams of colleagues that demonstrate outstanding commitment to the district's mission of educating all students for success in life. We are honored to have two individuals and two groups who will be recognized tonight. And I will now turn the presentation over to board members who will join us and read the recognitions. Member Wilson, will you please start us off?
Kevin Klott, please come forward. Kevin Klott is an absolute rare educator who understands the importance of providing support to students, families, fellow educators, and the district. Klott is an innovator who is adept at identifying and creating content to support our district-wide Springboard implementation, ASD Virtual, Canvas, and Apex eDynamics, all while acting as a language arts department chair
In addition to working with students to produce the Golden View Middle School Daily News announcement on GVTV on YouTube, his poise, tact, and dedication relate to his instructional methods. In this COVID-19 era, Clot gives so freely of his time, no matter what is on his proverbial plate. His provision, skill, and desire to learn and stay up to date on the ever-fluid challenges that distance learning and return to in-person learning has presented is unparalleled. In addition to these monumental contributions, he also took on being the coach for the Golden View Spelling Bee. His positivity, work ethic, and genuine love of his profession are just a few of the attributes that have greatly aided Golden View in identifying, troubleshooting, and getting in front of operational and educational hurdles. When he is not acting as the Golden View technology point of contact, he also serves as the Anchorage Education Association site representative, while also serving on countless committees and leadership groups, both in the Golden View building and the larger ASD community. Clot has developed numerous relationships with community organizations and harnessed their influence for the betterment of all youth he serves. These efforts have helped foster opportunities for students to glean exposure, opportunities, and confidence in their abilities.
Will the following individuals please come forward? Nathan Bankston, P. Rivera, Tor Christofferson, Michelle Valentine, Susie Whited, Rick Stone, John Lewis, Jamal Saya, and Kenneth Colley. So on September 2nd, 2021, an ASD maintenance crew was at South Anchorage High School to clear trails on the property when crew member Jeff Sieber began to feel lightheaded. As he approached coworkers Nathan Bankston and Pete Rivera, he lost consciousness and fell in the parking lot. Sieber experienced cardiac arrest, his heart stopped, and he quit breathing. Bankston and Rivera responded by beginning chest compressions. South High School counselor Tor Christofferson arrived on the scene shortly thereafter and immediately notified high school security and administration, including South High Administrative Assistant Michelle Valentine and school nurse Susie Whited. Whited ran out of the building with a medical kit, and Valentine followed with the automatic external defibrillator. In the meantime, all members of the South High security team and student services principal Rick Stone arrived on the scene. South security member John Lewis took over CPR from Rivera and Bankston, who had been performing CPR for almost 5 minutes. Soon thereafter, Whited used the AED to deliver a shock to attempt to restart Sieber's heart. At the same time, South security members Jamal Saya and Kenneth Colley cleared the area, controlled traffic, and helped EMTs to the scene. Stone provided communications coordination throughout the event and made decisions on how to best direct resources to respond to the emergency. In a review of the incident, Sieber was deceased for approximately 8 minutes before he was revived with a combination of CPR and the use of the AED. Without the immediate actions and coordinated efforts of this life-saving team, Sieber would not be alive. Yeah.
You might be safer over there. Security guards. Right? It's awesome.
Rachel Molina Ladune, please come forward. Rachel Molina Ladune has been part of the Capital Planning and Construction Department for over 24 years. After receiving her bachelor's degree in business administration from the University of Alaska, she excelled as a project support analyst and was promoted to project support manager in 2009. Ladune coaches over 30 project managers, construction inspectors, and specialists with a common goal of planning and constructing approximately $50 million in bond-funded capital projects annually. In addition to her flawless record as a fund manager, Rachel has been extremely successful in the development, submission, and award receipt of capital grants from legislators and the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development. These grants have saved the district millions of dollars in capital project costs. Rachel's teammate best describes her impact on the department. Quote, Rachel is undeniably a huge asset to capital planning and construction. Her problem-solving, positive attitude, hard work, and dedication keeps this department running smoothly. We are fortunate to have a reliable and an incredibly supportive coworker. Following the November 30th, 2018 earthquake, Rachel quickly coordinated and tracked facility damage assessment teams to complete rapid visual survey reports on all 92 ASD facilities within 18 hours of the event. Rachel's ability to manage this time-consuming FEMA process has been nothing short of superb. Rachel is passionate about helping students and her community. She is a regular volunteer for the Alaska Special Olympics and coaches volleyball for the Midnight Sun Volleyball Club. Rachel maintains a positive, cooperative, and professional attitude. She is a true professional who stands out amongst her peers and is an outstanding representative for the Anchorage School District.
Okay, next, please come forward. Noah Adams, Hunter Barger, Tara Burt-Manging, Stephen Caraway, David Friedland, Luke Giesler, Steve Gonzalez, Christopher Ho, Heather Johnson, Evan Jones, Amanda McBratney, Joe Michael, James Miller, Arian Pentagrast, Roberto Seatone, Chris Sargento, Taylor Stock, Todd Sullivan, and John Wagner. Good luck sorting all that out. Yeah. Okay, are we ready? These award winners make up 3 smaller IT teams that combine to provide exceptional customer service for the Anchorage School District. The IT Service Desk team answers internal calls and attempts to resolve issues without escalation to other teams. During COVID-19, this team had to move to completely remote and add parents and students to support CUE without pause. Over 10,000 parents and student tickets were resolved during this time. From October 2020 to October 2021, the IT service desk answered 22,000 phone calls from staff, parents, and students. Congratulations.
That's part of it. Okay. The IT service desk admin techs stationed at the Education Center provide in-person support for the administrative department sites, including maintenance, operations, and student nutrition. This team provides Zoom and in-person support for each ASD school board meeting, technical support to all events at the ASD Education Center, and the yearly Learning and Leadership Summit. In the summer of 2021, this team upgraded 27 cafeteria manager computers in 2 weeks to be ready for food service in summer school sites. Once the summer sites were set up, the remaining 60 sites were upgraded before school start. This team also provided laptops to 301 new AEA staff members to ensure they were prepared for the school start. Thank you. Congratulations.
The IT application support and training team provides essential support and training for staff using instructional systems. The team revamped the ASD required training program, now housed in Canvas, to make them user-friendly. They provide training and support for CUE to teachers, clerical staff, and principals. This team also works directly with the assessment department, providing technical setup and support for all ASD testing applications. As the face or voice of IT, these three teams are at the front lines and vet every phone call and ticket that comes to the department. Thank you.
All right, so the team that fixes my mic were just right here, so thank you. I do just want to share, I made a joke that as they came up to receive their award, they all took a step behind the podium, because this is certainly our team from behind the scenes, and I want to give a heartfelt thank you to you for working together to make ASD work when we went online, and just being able to turn on a dime. And of course, from capital planning and construction to Golden View to Amazing South High, we just want to say thank you for all your efforts. And you make ASD great. It is great because of the people that we serve, the people who we employ, and our students. And so from the bottom of my heart, I just am so gracious to you and thank you very much. At this time, we are going to take pictures outside. All of the awardees, you have a lovely basket for you. We want you to take that home along with your award. But please mingle, enjoy food, take pictures, and celebrate these wonderful people that are your brothers, your sisters, your husbands, your wives, and our employees. So thank you. Please join the board in the atrium for some treats.
Yes, we'll take a 15-minute recess to celebrate and congratulate.
Sorry about that. I got to the end of the page, right? And it doesn't say anything. It was just blank, so I thought,
I know.
I thought that was the end. And no, there's more.
So I had to join in and say congratulations, and nobody paid attention to me because you already get it. Yes, put it up for me. Don't ask for a reference.
Congratulations.
We'll be starting in 2 minutes. I know.
You ready?
We'd like to welcome everybody back.
Like for a year, she was kind of doing her own, and she got really into it. And young like that. Yeah.
What does he do? Oh, I see what he's doing.
Letting this gal know. I just know her older sisters. Okay, they're friends with my daughter. It's really cool. What did it say? Did that not say that?
Like he was switching with Andrew.
Got it.
Okay, welcome back, everybody, and thank you for your patience. And congratulations again to our Denali Award winners. We also have another celebration in the house tonight. Somebody has a birthday today. Member Wilson. So can we just do one stanza?
She's 29
Happy birthday.
again.
Yeah.
Just one stanza. Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dora. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I just totally embarrassed her. And that brings us back to our agenda. We're on item C. C2. Ms. Shaw, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so SAB, or Student Advisory Board, had their latest meeting on January 11th, 2022. This meeting was very successful, just like all of our previous meetings have been. And then the SAB Exec Board met last week over Zoom to plan our February meeting, which is on February 15th, 2022 at 11:15 a.m. to 1:15 p.m. And then this weekend, Lydia, Josh, and Maggie from Polaris and myself will be heading to Juneau for the Association of Alaska School Boards Conference. I speak for all of us when I say that we are very excited for this new experience and all the things we get to learn and just see in Juneau. So, yeah.
Thank you. And you will have a great time and learn lots. So we look forward to that report as well. So thank you very much. And now we're moving on to item D1, our math proficiency goal monitoring. Dr. Bishop.
Thank you, Madam President. And you should have that math proficiency copy, and it's looking good. We're very happy to share it with you. And mine ripped. So here we go. Boy, we were out partying, celebrating. I missed didn't have my place organized. So thank you. And this is just the first part of the monitoring is giving you the information with the graphs so that the questions can come back and staff can prepare. Our staff in math that works with Dr. Knutson
assist in providing the answers when we have the dialogue. And so the math proficiency goal is 40 to 55% by May of 2026. And the interim goal 2.1 is also going to be shared, which is the percentage of grade 3 through 9 students at or above the math benchmark on interim adaptive assessments, which we use the MAP growth assessment, will increase from 48.4% in spring of 2021 to 50% in spring of 2022. So if you take a look at the math interim goal, we have a blue. We have an above target area. The top, again, is the goal. We have the superintendent evaluation. I'm sharing that according to the math growth color legend at the bottom. We do have an N for the amount of students who were in the fall and the winter this year, along with the annual target at the end. The next areas, we chose the template to continue so that the board has access and understanding, as well as the public, to the types of reports we're providing and the information. And so we provided you the participation and performance of the individual student groups for which are reported to the state and federal government in regard to, initially it was No Child Left Behind, has now been Every Student Succeeds, and more. So they change often, but it is our accountability measure. We also broke the goal down into, although it isn't presented by grade level, we broke it down so that the board could see 3rd through 9th grade. Again, the next steps, the process, what's going on, as well as the interim goal we want to share with you as well. We've placed in here, and that is on page 9. The percentage of 3 through 9 students on track to be proficient in mathematics, because we can use MAP and we have MAP growth to predict as a predictor how they do for passing and being proficient on the state assessments. Now, MAP has not done this work because, as you recall, the state assessment changed this year from peaks to, believe it or not, an NWEA product. So they might be able to do the assessment and interpolation a lot faster than they did before because they're going to own both pieces of the data. And so this is determining someone who is proficient, which is our prior interim goal, is at the 40th percentile above. This goal as a predictive is at the 65th percentile. And so, again, delivered to you by different student groups so that you can take a look, and the short-term next steps with talking points. So we hope you enjoy this. The staff did an amazing job. They're quite excited in the math group to be able to present this to you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bishop. And so with this report, we will please send your questions in to Katie so that we can prepare for our conversation on the 22nd. Thank you, Dr. Bishop. So we are moving on now to our public comment period on our agenda. And we do have individuals who have signed up to testify. So this is, we provide 2 opportunities to hear from the public at each of our meetings. We have an hour in the beginning, and hopefully we get through everybody in that hour. But if we don't get through everybody in that hour, we do another hour at the end. So today, I'd like to just read a few comments regarding our process. As you came in, you should have seen a handout that welcomes you to our boardroom and the Ed Center, as well as gives you the process and expectations for participation, along with the rules of engagement for the boardroom. So welcome to our first opportunity for evening public comment. This hour, you will, each individual within the hour, each individual will have 3 minutes. And this is, we do not engage with the public. We are here to listen to whatever the public would like for us to know. So it's the public's time to speak and the board's time to listen. The board welcomes the public to observe and contribute to our meetings through their comments, but to be productive, our meetings must be structured and civil. We conduct all of our meetings under Robert's Rules of Order, and under these rules, the board and the public are required to behave in civil and respectful ways by acknowledging or by not being attacking or combative in any way. So under Robert's Rules, speakers may point out what he or she believes to be the natural consequences of a board action, but may not engage in speech that personally attack others. Please refrain from disturbing the meeting. And this really means no cheering, applause, or outbursts. Now, the celebration was different. We did do a little cheering and applauding. For this portion, though, unless you are testifying, please be polite to the board and to other speakers. No profanity or foul language. This is a place that we do not have that in our boardroom. Please wear your masks at all times, including during your testimony. The mask must cover your mouth and nose unless you have a medical waiver. There should be no waving of signs, flyers, or posters. And if you have handouts, the lovely Katie to my left will be happy to make sure the board gets whatever handouts that you have. So with that, it is my duty to enforce the rules of civility and decorum. As such, I have the authority to rule any speaker out of order for violation of these rules and others. Further, I will have removed from the meeting anyone who does not heed to the rules or fails to conduct themselves in a civil manner. And with that, I'd like to welcome our first speaker, Melinda Peterson in person. Melinda Peterson. Is she online? No. Okay. We'll try to circle back to Melinda. Jacqueline Goforth. Jacqueline Goforth in person. Okay. Okay, let's move to the telephone. Danielle Kemp. Okay. Niall Sherwood Williams. Telephonic? Okay. Okay, Rayanne, are you here? Rayanne Delores. Rayanne Delores. Elizabeth is here. Welcome, Elizabeth. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Before I start, I just wanted to share with you, this is my use of data right now. This is what I still have to enter to show you the work that I do as a school counselor. But 3 minutes. Good evening, Dr. Bishop, school board members, ASD directors, and community members. My name is Elizabeth Conga McGee, and I'm here as a school counselor from Whaley School. I'm here tonight to celebrate National School Counseling Week, in which school counselors around the nation have a chance to educate, advocate, and share with others the work that they do for students, staff, and families they serve. I will continue to advocate and educate through giving presentations on our role at conferences, speaking with legislative members, and making a difference in my students' lives every day. I just returned from Washington, D.C., where I was surrounded by the best school counselors in the nation, as we shared in the recognition of being School Counselors of the Year. I am here to shine some light on the importance of allowing the school counselors that we employ do the job that they are trained to do. Although we are not therapists, we are trained in providing social and emotional learning tools, coping strategies, and dealing with trauma and youth mental health. I am a true believer in collaborating with outside agencies to help our students move forward with the issues that have arose due to COVID, as well as the growing issues of mental health and suicide. I am not a believer in outside agencies doing the job of the school counselor. ASD has school counselors that are hired to provide services for all students. I would like to suggest that we have our outside agency counselors provide Tier 3 services to students based on the recommendations of the school counselor already employed with ASD to provide intensive one-on-one counseling for those students that are struggling the most. Allow our current school counselors employed by ASD to provide the Tier 1 and 2 services and provide the outside agency counselors a list of students that could benefit from Tier 3 services. ASD has some of the best school counselors in Alaska, and unfortunately, we are not leading the pack because school counselors are doing other duties other than school counseling. A comprehensive school counseling program was developed by ASD school counselors. I have shared this document with many school counselors that have surpassed us in implementing a program in their schools, as well as advocating that it be implemented district-wide. I know that we are short-staffed and everyone needs to help. However, our students suffer when they don't have access to their school counselor. There is a reason why Whaley School has been recognized as a distinguished mental health and wellness school, as well as the Capturing Kids' Hearts National Associate School. It's because Ms. Harrison and I, as professional school counselors, are working right next to with our administrators to help be systemic change agents in building a culture and community, positive culture and community in our buildings. I urge you to encourage leaders in our schools to listen to the expertise their school counselors have. ASD does not employ guidance counselors, but professional school counselors, and we need to start recognizing the expertise that school counselors bring to the table. Remember, we are all better.
Thank you, Elizabeth Congdon McGee. Next, we have in person, Eve Green. Eve Green. Okay, in person, Brian Stashak. Brian Stashak, S-T-A-S-H-A-K, in case I'm really butchering it. Okay. All right, I'll go through the list one more time in case somebody showed up. Melinda Peterson, Jacqueline Goforth, Danielle Kemp, Now Sherwood Williams, Rayanne Delares, Eve Green, and Brian Stashak. Okay, that ends our public testimony. You will find attached to the agenda online, you will find written public comments as well. That brings us to our consent agenda.
Madam President, I'd like to move that we approve the consent agenda as listed. Includes the, I'm sorry, I meant to have those items right in front of me and I don't.
I can help you out there.
December 6th, regular session minutes, the ASD Memorandum 073 Personnel Report, ASD Memorandum 077 Request for Budget Transfer Reversal, Capital Projects Fund to General Fund, and ASD Memorandum 079 Authorization to Access Municipal Financing for the Replacement of School Buses. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's moved in second to approve the consent agenda. We'll have to do a roll call.
May we pull one of them for discussion?
Sure. Which one would you like to pull?
077, please.
So we have to catch up. We kind of got out of sync. Pulling item 4, F4.
So that will put it under action items.
into action. So that leaves for the consent agenda, regular session minutes for December 6, memo 7073 and memorandum 079. Can I get a motion for those three? Because we got ahead of ourselves sideways a little bit. Motion to approve those three?
Madam President, I move we approve the remaining three on the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved in second to approve the remaining three items on the agendas. Is there any opposition to the approval of those three? Oh, wait, we have to do a voice vote, don't we?
Because
Yes.
Member Wilson,
Yes.
Member Lessons,
Yes.
Member Jacobs,
Yes.
Member Holloman,
Yes.
Member Higgins, Member Donnelly,
Yes.
President Bellamy.
Yes. Those three items are approved. Thank you. So now that brings us to our action item. Our first item is ASD memorandum number 069. Are there any individuals wishing to speak on memorandum 069, approval of Inlet View Elementary School, 65% design, development, and supplemental educational specifications? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on that memo, on this item? Seeing none, we will open it up to the board. Any board members have any questions or discussions? Oh, so there is no testimony, Andy, so we need you to move it to an action item so that we can discuss it. Memorandum 069.
Someone else can do it.
I'm not sure what you're asking on that.
So yeah, I just asked if there was nobody in the audience who wished to speak. So now we need a motion to get it
sorry,
action.
yes. I do move we approve ASD memorandum 069, approval of Inlet View Elementary School, 65% design, development, supplemental educational specifications.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved in second to approve memorandum 069. Now it's open for discussion. Yes, member Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam President. I just continue to support doing a remodel rather than a replacement.
Just a minute. Thank you. All right, member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. I was hoping to hear from either the design team or the building design committee as to how the design has changed since this item was last in front of us, was one of the questions I had.
Yes. If we and the staff, Dr. Bishop.
Yes, Madam President. I've requested Tom Roth to come forward, Chief Operating Officer.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop, and through the President, if I might. I would like to bring forward, first I'm going to ask Tom Fennisip to join me here, but we do have members of the Building Design Committee. We have the architect, Paul Burrill, from Envision, Charlie Peters, who is the project manager, and then the principal of the school, Patricia Ahrens, and then two members who've been frankly involved in this process for several years ongoing now. So I am certainly we're happy to entertain any questions about the Building Design Committee. I would like to take this opportunity, if I might, because I've drugged Charlie and Paul down here a couple nights, and focus on, the design itself, if we might, and speak to what we're really trying to accomplish to meet the excellent school, the outcome that we're trying to achieve for the district, as well as for the community. And the people who are here really, I think, embody, that effort that's been ongoing now for several years with Inlet View. So Mr. Jacobs, we're happy to entertain any specific questions with regards to the BDC. But again, if we can spend some time on the design itself, but also, why did the Building Design Committee arrive at the recommendation that they did? Because again, I think that's something that we really haven't had a chance to articulate to the school board, and we recognize that we're asking the board to approve this design. So with your agreement, Madam President.
And I'm going to yield, I guess, to Mr. Jacobs. He had 3 questions that came up in our request for information, and I did indicate to him that we would respond to those. So I can read them. The first one has the revised BDC process of adding members and other transparency measures to make meetings accessible, improved BDC operations, and ease previous conveyed concerns.
So
that's kind of choppy. I apologize.
Through the president to the first, I'll answer with a somewhat general response. I think the immediate answer is yes, because again, it brought in additional voices to input into this design. But in terms of the guys who actually can speak to the dynamics of the group, I'm gonna default to Mr. Burrill and to Mr. Peters to answer that more specifically.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Do you want Charlie? Do you want to start on that? You can start. Okay. So we brought 3 BDC members with us tonight to help, so they could help speak to this question specifically. But from my perspective as the project architect and running the BDC meetings, we've definitely had additional input with the new BDC members. We went through really a 2-month additional public input, 2-month period to get input, and that resulted in adding, we added 2 BDC members to the BDC that were direct neighbors to the south. And those 2 members have added contribution to the BDC effort. And it's gone well. Everybody's behaved. Nobody's been, it hasn't been a conflict. But there has been some disagreements, but everybody's been very professional. And so I'd let the BDC members here speak directly to the question. I think it'd be beneficial for you.
Has there been consensus? 100%? No, there hasn't. So if that's what you're wondering, no. But we have 3 new members, all of whom are neighbors and don't have any kids at the school, and some of them don't have any little kids at all. They have a lot to say, and they've been listened to, and there have been design changes that have happened. Mostly, I think, since the community council meeting, the first one where the 65% was presented, a lot of the comments from that resulted in some design and landscape changes that they were all well appreciated and well-timed comments. But our meetings are longer, and I would say, Paul's painting a positive light. As a person who's been in the meeting since the beginning, they were more productive at the beginning. And now there's definitely time given to listening to Discord, which is good. But then at the end, they've also been open for public comments. And those comments haven't always been very kind. And it is hard to sit through a 2-hour meeting and then listen to a lot of negative commentary, but we have, and it's been good that people felt like they could comment, I guess. So that's my frank response.
I could clarify a couple of things on that really quick. So the 3rd BDC member that we added was the BDC decided to add an additional one, or a 3rd member in addition to the 2 that we allowed the South Addition Community Council to add. So the South Addition Community Council they elected or selected 2 people to join the BDC. And then the BDC offered to another neighbor that lives south of the school on M Street a position on the BDC as well, and she accepted. So that's why we have the third member. And then we presented the 35% design at the South Addition Community Council, and then changes have resulted since then to the 65% submittal that you guys are reviewing and approving today.
Okay. And another one of the questions was, what were those changes? What changes, if any, were made to the inlet view design since the board last addressed this project?
So to answer that question, so the primary changes that have been made were reduction in parking counts. We reduced the parking by approximately 20 stalls, and we added a larger landscaping buffer between the parking lot and inlet place. Those are the two major changes, along with the some minor changes where we've identified that playground shifting locations to avoid some shading in certain locations. We got a lot of input from neighbors that were concerned about shadowing of their property, which in result ended us looking at closer shading of playground equipment on the property, which helped us improve that, because we weren't having a shading issue with the neighbors, but because they brought that concern to us, we were able to look at some closer things like that. So we shifted some playground equipment around, shifted the basketball court and the asphalt games around, so there were some minor changes there. But primarily the major changes were our parking lot reduction and the green space addition at Palm Long Inlet Place.
Were there any changes to the ingress and egress into the parking lot?
No, there has not been changes since then yet.
Can I address that real quick? So Madam President, I believe you're cognizant when the district went to the assembly for the assembly to act on moving the bond proposition forward to the ballot. We were working with an assembly member to develop an option in terms of how traffic would route on the site. We did this team did develop that option that we think right now that we still need to look in more detail at it. We still have to get a traffic engineer evaluation of it. The BDC, the expanded BDC did meet. They did evaluate and recommend that we would retain the same traffic pattern. But again, this is all based on an incomplete evaluation of the alternate traffic plan. What it does, and these guys can talk more details, it does route traffic from 12th Avenue through the school site onto 13th. So it would effectively bypass Inlet Place. It does come at cost though, in that it would significantly reduce the amount of playground space to accommodate this. So there are some trade-offs, but it's still an option that the BDC will continue to evaluate, get more informed advice to it, and then come back with a recommendation for a decision. If that answers your question.
That does, thank you. Other questions from the board? Not see, yeah, Member Jacobs?
Yeah, Madam President, thank you. I wanted to first express appreciation for the Building Design Committee members making time to come tonight, your service on the committee. I know it's been a long process, and I've watched a couple meetings, and I appreciate that they're long. I fully support the project, continue to do so. I intended to have my questions answered actually last month, and so I would have preferred to focus on the design elements tonight for sure. If there are any other elements, Mr. Roth, that you would prefer to highlight and for the board's attention, I would be glad to hear them. I want to make sure you were given space to include that.
Excuse me. So through the president to Member Jacobs, I do welcome the opportunity just to highlight, because there have been questions, and we recognize that there has been some consternation, and to be sure, we understand that, the folks who have had the most concerns, they have skin in the game, right? They live right next to the school site. But just to share, some of the reasons, and again, I think this is kind of an encapsulation of what BDC, what led them to the recommendation that they have. So the first is with regards to the south end. It is not insignificant that it enables a continuity of education on a single site for Inlet View. And firstly, that reduces significantly the churn for staff and students and families over the duration of the project, which could be up to 2.5 to 3 years. It allows class cohorts to remain together throughout this entire period instead of being broken up to multiple schools. And that if you're a parent, you have that peace of mind knowing that your kid will be able to continue in that program. From a probably a lesser consideration, but it's a factor that it would reduce transportation costs, and that we're not in a position of having to move students every day to up to 3 different schools to accommodate that population. So that's one criteria. With regards to the building, just a couple things. The way the design is set up, it's set up to maximize southern sunlight, which is significant in that I think the fact that you have more direct natural light, studies I think do show that better light actually has a benefit to student performance and behavior in schools. So they factored that in. That also, by being on the south side, just the way the ground is configured, it allows for a playground both on the north side, the main playground, but also a smaller playground on the south side of the field. That these have been integrated into the design of the site. And it also allows for what I think is significant, better kind of an enhanced supervisory overview of these playgrounds, play areas by both the staff of the school, but also kind of a neighborhood watch over the school site. Also, that the way that the building is oriented, it's facing vegetation in the neighborhood instead of looking straight out onto the playground. Again, not a big thing, but a consideration. Sometimes kids looking at kids playing on a playground is a distractor. That distractor is not going to be there. It's a two-story design, which is more space efficient. It allows for, in addition to the necessary classrooms, an NPR, a dedicated gymnasium, administrative space without consuming a huge amount of the available space. And we know that Inlet View is a very small school site. So that's a significant piece. And then just the comments from the group here in terms of the way the parking is configured, it faces to the east. So if you're coming down 12th Avenue, 13th Avenue, you're looking into a very welcoming school. Whereas the way it's configured now, where you have the school building kind of on the northwest end of the site, kind of obscured, it doesn't present that welcoming effect. So these are just some of the considerations, given all the different options that this team looked at, that brought them to this recommendation of how the school's configured and where they configured it on the site. So I'll pause if anybody has any other comments that they want to add.
I don't want to talk too much, but I just want to let you know that every time we had to make a decision between two hard choices, because there weren't any perfect choices that everyone said, this is exactly it. The building design committee, represented by parent, neighbors, and staff, key staff, really made the choices that prioritize the kids and the families in Inlet View every time. So you can rest assured that we were thinking about that first and foremost when we made all of our tough choices.
Thank you. Questions? Member Higgins.
Just one comment. What I really appreciate out of the explanations being provided is that while there are controversies associated, everything's focused on the students. What's best for educational outcomes, what's best for the kids in that unit, where it should be, how it should be done. And I think, I don't think there's a better compliment than to say thank you for that, because you're focused on the kids. That's what we're looking for.
Thank you. Other comments? Member Lessons?
I have a question, and I actually don't know if it's appropriate for this moment in tonight's agenda or a little bit later, but it's been suggested to me by a principal who has gone through construction elsewhere that the obligations of a principal in a major construction site are substantial. And I would appreciate this opportunity for members of the administration, Ms. Ahrens, to reflect on whether there would be utility in the district budgeting an assistant principal or something to that effect in the upcoming year and a half, 2 years, to help you focus on your students and maybe not be a project manager. I don't know if that's an appropriate question for this point in time.
Probably for Dr. Bishop at some point in the future. I think there is a process already in place on how the district handles those staffing things. So we'll just need to, if you don't mind, we could. Okay, great. But that was a very nice thought, Kelly. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. Ms. Lessons had asked a question at the last meeting, and we wanted to make sure that you got that answer. In the briefing, the 65% document report on page 9, there was a couple of missing spots, and you asked for us to get that information for you. And Ms. Ahrens can speak to the zone exemption students better, but the count that she gave us was 60 to 65 students, and it varies per year. And then that their intensive students are 0. But I think Ms. Ahrens can speak more towards the zone exemption and how they came up with that number.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to answer that question. And, when we talked about the zone exemptions, and I know that sometimes have been some misconceptions that it's a big number of students, but overall, every year the lottery process is very clear and transparent. So families that want their kids to come to Inlet View, they apply to the lottery, and those numbers that are reflected in the 60 to 65 have been decreasing over the years. Just to give you an example, this 2021-2022 school year, there were only about 7 students that were accepted into the zone exemption for kindergarten, and maybe 1 or 2 siblings that attended for upper grade levels. And the other students are being, processed through years in the past. And sometimes it's just older siblings whose little brother or little sister is turning into kindergarten age, and therefore they are, for family purposes, this common sense that they come to the same school. So that is a clarification that I wanted to present. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You good? Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. We appreciate all your hard work, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
So not seeing any other questions, the motion that we are voting on is in accordance with AR 3311.1F.2. The administration recommends that the school board approve the 65% design development and supplemental educational specifications for Inlet View Elementary School replacement and authorize the superintendent to use them as a guide for future capital improvements affecting the school and its campus. Ready to vote.
Member Donnelly.
No.
Member Higgins.
Yes.
Member Wilson.
Yes.
Member Jacobs.
Yes.
Member Lessons.
Yes.
Member Holloman.
Yes.
President Bellamy.
Yes. And that motion passes 6 yeas to 1 nay. Thank you. And at this point, we are moving, before we move to non-action, Dr. Bishop, did you? Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Madam President, prior to the additional action item, I was wondering if I could take just a brief moment to introduce someone in the audience.
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Madam President. And this is timely because this person has to get back to a job chaperoning children. And I would like to invite Ron Brown to the front. And he might look familiar to folks, but he has moved from the interim Betty Davis East Anchorage High School principal to the Betty Davis East Anchorage High School. He was confirmed and hired. Yep. And so, as always, when we hire principals, we share. Did they take all the chairs away from you?
No, I have.
Okay, if you want, but because if you would like to say a few words, maybe your experience, or just to let the board get to know you a little bit, so that when they come visit you at your school, you'll be a familiar face. We're so proud that Ron accepted the job, and he's done a tremendous job at the school now, and he has a big game this evening, yes. Diamond East, and if you know basketball, it's a hot one, so we know we got to let him go.
Okay, thank you very much, Superintendent. Madam Board, Madam Bellamy, board members, thank you guys very much for the opportunity to serve at the Betty Davis East Anchorage High School. Looking forward to working with the staff, students, and the community. Great school. I've had a lot of fun. This is my, I want to say, 8th school. And so hopefully I can settle in and kind of give some longevity to this position. I invite you to come out to the school at any time. Anytime you feel like you want to take a break from reality, come on out and see our basketball games, because our basketball team is undefeated. Our boys basketball team, 2 years. So please come out and support us.
All right. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. If there's no other questions for me, I do need to get back to the basketball game.
We were on the lookout for you, so we got you. Thank you.
Well,
congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Okay, so let's see. We had memorandum 077 pulled. So we need a motion.
Madam President.
For discussion.
Just for quick discussion.
But we didn't vote on it. And it was
Okay. Okay. All right.
Madam President, I move that we move item 077 for consideration.
Second.
Moved in second. The actual motion is to approve a return transfer of unused funds from the Capital Projects Fund back to the general fund in the amount of $50,714. The board authorized these funds in ASD memorandum number 42. Is there a second? Did I hear a second over here? Was it you, Carl? Okay. It was Member Jacobs. Okay, it's been moved in second to move memorandum 077 to action. So, Member Lessons.
Yeah, I simply wanted to take the opportunity to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation for the local community members, the vendors who, in light of board discussion around the memorandum, spoke up and offered a lower cost possibility to our needs. And thanks to the administration for engaging with them in that process. And I think, that the district stands to benefit by $1 million. And we can return those public dollars to our general fund in light of our looming fiscal cliff. I think it's remarkable. And I just wanted to pull it as an outstanding example of engaged community members and people working together to support education.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
Member Higgins.
Yes.
Member Holloman.
Yes.
Member Lessons.
Yes.
Member Donnelly.
Yes.
Member Jacobs.
Yes.
Member Wilson.
Yes.
President Bellamy.
Yes. And that memorandum passes unanimously. So the board, we have approved the return transfer of unused funds. Thank you. Okay, let's see. We are now on Non-action items. Any discussion? Yes, Member Jacobs?
Yeah, I would like to ask a couple questions, and I would wager that other members would do the same regarding Memorandum 81, the preliminary financial plan and budget.
Okay. All right, so why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. Was hoping to get additional clarification on the timeline as to when we might have more information on the reorganized mental health services that the administration is hoping to implement, and what that looks like in terms of us voting on the budget. If we'll have that before our vote, or if not, when that information will be available for us.
Thank you. And I can jump in here, Madam President, and turn it over to Mark Stock. And you can sit over there, Jenny, if you'd like, just to grab a microphone. And Dr. Stock can address it initially, and then he has the new senior director of that position.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. So we definitely have a plan and a process. And when we conducted the interviews for the senior director for mental health and student supports, of which Dr. Knudsen was our successful candidate, she presented us with a robust calendar of events for a process that would unfold during this time. But I do want to remind the board that she has a day job running the teaching and learning department, which is very, very busy with all the federal programs. So, but in the meantime, she's definitely begun and has started that work. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Knudsen, and she's going to share some of the details.
Thank you, Dr. Stock. Through the president, Member Jacobs, we have been hitting the ground running in January since we was offered this position. And really, it's going to be a partnership, just so you know. So as the new Senior Director of Mental Health and Student Support and our Senior Director of Health Services, we're going to be working and partnering on this as we move forward. So as far as the timeline goes, really what we're looking at is first action was hiring these positions and ensuring we had people internally that had that mental health support and background to support this work. The second thing that we're doing is really doing an assessment of where we're at as a district. So right now, Kate and I are meeting with internal people like our principals, counselors, psychologists, and really getting an idea to what Elizabeth testified earlier, what are their jobs, where are things working, where are some of the conflicts, so that we can have an assessment of that and have an accurate view of what's currently happening in our schools, as well as meeting with our external community partners so that we can gather information about what they can offer, what their role is, and what they think their role is. And so we can kind of work through an integrated behavioral health system within our schools. So that information we're gathering this month and next month. And then our goal is to open it up and have an advisory, a mental health advisory team that we would put out in applications and get people to join. And this would be not just a one-time thing, but it would be an ongoing committee that we would have to really guide our work over the next 5 years now, that we have this strategic plan. So that committee will really involve community stakeholders, our students, our internal stakeholders like counselors, psychologists, behavior support strategists, as well as our community agencies, parents, students on the committee, and really laying out what is the vision of what behavioral health, integrated behavioral health looks like in the Anchorage School District. Right now, we have a lot of services, but they're fragmented. And so the goal is to integrate them and really work together at bringing them together so that we can offer more equitable services to our students across all of our schools. And I'm going to look to Kate and see if there's anything else you'd like to add.
So, Madam President, may I add, in time to vote for this budget, not a solid plan due to the stakeholder involvement and opening the process up to ensure that the plan over 5 years is sustainable And we are going to, through the monitoring of goals and guardrails, provide a white paper to you about the work that they're doing. And I'd have to, Madam President, look for that date of that guardrail. But I know that they're gathering information now for that.
Other questions? Member Higgins, you got your mic on? No, you good?
I'm sorry, say that again?
You had your mic on. I thought you
Oh.
wanted to speak. Okay, thank you. Okay, Member Jacobs?
Well, I get a follow-up if I might, Madam President.
Oh, sure.
Yep, so my understanding is part of the process that the administration views, and I know the Council of Great City Schools has kind of advocated, is us saying, if we would like to see changes to the draft document, asking the administration to go back to the review process and make changes as they see fit. I'm struggling with how to do that if we don't have more information as to what changes might be coming to say, we need more supports if the re-envisionment of what we're about to undertake isn't yet available. And so I guess I'm looking for advice from the administration as to how I should process that.
I'm sure. Dr. Bishop?
Through the president to Member Jacobs, that is a great question. And that's, we're also new to this process. And had we been in any other type of year, I think we would have had the human power to access and do some of this outside of the workday, incorporating of a plan. Certainly, a budget line item can be made. We can say, this is how much we want to spend on it. We put wedges in our budgets quite often to be able to do that. But a serious plan that is professional, that incorporates stakeholders, that can bring us into the future. The plan is something that there wasn't enough time in the day nor people available who need to be sitting at the table to do it. And so the budget wedge is something that can be done. The actual, this is how it's going to be spent. We would need the leisure to be able to decide that as that plan comes to fruition with the necessary stakeholders that our board has continually valued the input of our employees, of different, stakeholders really, as well as our community and partners in the community.
Other questions? Member Lessons?
I have a follow-up question with respect to mental and behavioral health. We have metrics for counselors. It's like 1 to 300 in middle and high schools, and maybe also for elementary. I forget off the top of my head. I guess I want to assume that's best practices. Is there a better practice than 1 to 300? And if so, why are we allocating one counselor to 300 students?
Through the president to Member Lessons, probably that I would say is not adequate. That is what is affordable in the budget. We could increase that, and then we would have to look, those were established years ago, we would have to look at what else then comes away. And as you know, we have one-time money to kind of boost us forward this year, but we are trying to integrate our partners so that this guardrail can build into the future. And so basically those are built around, if we had unlimited money, we could do unlimited wonderful things. And I'm sure that Mark and his team can spend a wedge of money in servicing kids. It's just that to come again to a plan is very difficult. But those were established, really utilizing best practices and understanding what they are, and then what can we afford in our schools. That's how those were established many years ago in conjunction with principals and other stakeholders. Probably about 2016, 17, I think. Prior to that time, there were not metrics necessarily that were public for those items.
Okay. Did you have a follow-up? Are you good?
I have other questions not related to mental health.
Okay, so hold up. Let's see. Let me do a sweep of the room. Jacobs.
So if we're specifically limiting to mental health at this point, I do have another follow-up question. I want to make sure my reading of the budget books, it's a significant document, is correct, and that the proposed changes in terms of additional staff that are being, positions that were created, there's not an influx of staff that would provide mental or behavioral health supports. We're not seeing that in the budget. Is that correct?
I would, Madam President, to Member Jacobs, we do have that in special education, which again, it's going to be a group effort in giving schools through our MTSS process, behavioral supports. And a lot of the times we know that the struggles with mental health come out in behavioral instances for children. And so these people are working with teachers to support children in that realm. But I'll turn it over to Dr. Stock if I'm understanding that wrong.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. There are in the vicinity of about 19 positions in the special ed services budget line that Tarlisha Wayne has recommended. Those are all behavioral supports. Some analysts, some use of funds for positions they've not been able to fill. And while this isn't specific to your answer, Member Jacobs, but I would say the stakeholders have three main categories that they're going to be exploring. So first is partnerships. And so think of that as the external supports in our community and how we might leverage those partnerships to increase the use of behavioral and mental health in our schools. And so they will explore those relationships, the funding streams that feed those, and whether or not, if we had other funds, what we would be able to do with that capacity. The second one is in the area of personnel, which gets at Member Lesson's comment about the metrics. So they have to go in and look at what kinds of personnel levels of supports we might be able to leverage. Now understand in that area, there are shortages in every single one of those mental health areas in our community. So even if there were funds available, the likelihood of staffing those is limited right now. So that it has to be a longer term approach. They're looking for social workers, behaviorists, psychologists, counselors, family therapists, etc. Those will have to jigsaw those together based on whatever comes out of the stakeholder groups. The third area that they'll have to explore is the professional development of our existing staff. What can we do? And Dr. Bishop has, before talked about grants that we've gotten to do professional development with teachers themselves on how to recognize the trauma and the ACEs and the suicide, potential among students so that we can leverage staff at all levels. So those are three areas. And while that's not a specific quote plan, it's the framework of what this group is going to be developing. And so while it won't be completely done by April, we should have a pretty good idea of some of the steps that we need to take.
Okay, thank you. Member Lessons?
Sure. So this is not a mental behavioral health question. My biggest concern with the budget is that I don't think it does justice to the sort of acuity of need that our young students are facing. I spoke about this in my meeting with ASD staff. I think that this year's first graders and second graders who were kindergartners beginning school online and are extremely vulnerable and have the rest of their education ahead of them. I think that they need intensive help. The idea that, these kids right now, like they're coding, they need to go to the ER of sorts. We need to allocate resources like it's an emergency. And so my request, and I think I asked something to the effect of how many teachers do we need to have class sizes at 15? And you said, Mr. Anderson, about 220. And I guess I don't know how many.
It was about 225.
Okay.
If we went to a PTR, which is not a class size necessarily.
Yeah, okay.
But if we did a PTR of 15, it was 225 FTA. Yeah, for K2.
How many more? I haven't looked in depth yet. How many more is that than we currently have allocated? Like what sort of a shift is necessary?
you asking how many currently we have allocated to those
I
elementary
guess,
schools?
yeah,
Or, I mean, it's 220.
for next year, you know, if we currently need a total of X, and we know that
depends.
to get a PTR of 15, we would need X plus.
To get to 15, we need the 225.
You need 225
25
additional
additional.
teachers.
Correct.
Okay, that was the
And
clarification.
where would we get 225 extra teachers, I guess? Do we have them in our applicant database?
Would there be a way to triage and kind of apply a prioritization of that smaller PTR to the schools with greatest need? I mean, that would be sort of equity in action.
Through the president, that's really a question for Mark and I. And yes, that's what we're doing. And that's specifically, and we've received, some feedback from principals that they're not happy about that, of our whole pack positions, also those specialists in the areas of reading, because that's where kids struggle. We need to be sure they, can catch up. And we're reserving those for the outcomes at the end of this year where the need is greatest, to be able to serve the greatest need. So we've supported schools through the PTR ubiquitously. And then we have staff that goes to the greatest need. And this isn't a new process. We've always reserved staffing for that. But this time we've also reserved some specialists for particular programs.
Okay, Member Jacobs, you have another question? I see your mic's on.
Oh, yep, I do, but I can wait till others have had a turn. I'm going.
Well,
circle
no, but
back
I
to
don't
mental
see any others.
Okay,
Looks
well-
like it's you and Member Lessons
Okay,
tonight.
then I'll gladly take the floor again. So I think I'm interested in examining or hearing from the administration on an examination as to what it would look like if we added some flexibility for funding for additional mental health supports in this budget, and what we would have to look at reducing. But I guess the information I need at this point is, would the administration prefer a vote, or is that something that I should request just as a singular board member?
I didn't hear you. Would you prefer?
Sure. So my question to the administration is, would the administration prefer a vote that up to 4 members or more second the request of getting information as to what it would look like to get that extra wedge put into the budget, or is that something I can request as a board member?
Madam President, I really would defer that to the board, because I think the process that you referenced was the board collectively would say, this is what we want, and then we would do it. Is that correct?
So, I guess for me, I would want to know it's one thing what are we going to be taking the money from?
And I'm asking you,
So
my
I
understanding of our
can't-
process is the administration would be the one to research and examine and give us a recommendation as to what that would look like. And so my question is, can we start the process of asking them to do that research and consideration?
We can always do that research and consideration. I was talking about do it, like this is how it's going to be, would be the vote. I'm
Sure.
assuming.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm not prepared to make any decisions personally. I just am looking for the information and that recommendation.
Okay.
But Mr. Anderson and Mr. Ratliff, how are
Through
you
the
picturing
President, what would be the scope of this? Like, in terms of total dollars, what would you look for us to reallocate at that point? I mean, that's, if we're trying to come up with these ideas, I think that's something that we would need to know. Is this a $2 million, $5 million, $10 million type of request?
Yeah. So I guess if it's my request and I would make it, I would say something like 2.5 and 5 million. So maybe those two levels, that would be helpful for me, I think.
We would probably look at the most restrictive funds first, which would be something like ESSER 2 rollover, just to give you an idea, because it has an end date. And so when we look to adding wedges, we obviously look at general fund, we look at other stuff, but we do look at the most restrictive funds first. And the ones that run out first, that would get us through the year.
Yes. Madam President, to add, I think he probably isn't concerned about where the money comes from. It's what programs is what I'm understanding. Like what would the opportunity cost be, not necessarily where it was derived from. And that would actually take the whole team to do that. And so we can bring some of those ideas back. Is that my understanding is correct?
Absolutely.
The opportunity cost.
Absolutely correct. Thank you.
And so in order to, are there other board members interested in Member Jacobs' request? Okay, well, that's okay. Thank you. Other questions for the team? Yes.
This is a bigger question. Could we get a better understanding of a long-term vision for IT and devices and software? There are some sizable elements of this budget dedicated to technology, to software, and yet, you know, the ESSER funds for ASD Virtual run out in FY24. I'd like maybe a little bit for the public record and for my own understanding. Could you help me we bought a lot of Chromebooks already. Where are we and where are we going and maybe why?
And I think that's a question for Dr. Bishop.
Yep. Thank you. And I'm going to defer to our Chief Information Officer, Mike Fleckenstein.
Through the president to member Lessons. So I think that's probably a multi-part question that takes us and the instructional team to respond to. From a purely what's the program? It's a one-to-one program at our secondary schools, and right now it's actually defined as one-to-one from grade level 3 up. We are looking at potentially making some changes at the elementary level to better suit the instructional plan that they have. Right now, we plan to continue with one-to-one. During the pandemic, we found that there were a lot of inequities in our community. And so as we started to pass out Chromebooks at the beginning of the pandemic, we actually had a lot more takers and a lot more need than our initial survey showed that the community need might be. And so we want to continue that, providing that equity of device and access to those children. And so the plan is to continue that program. Part of the money in the program that you see is also some staffing at secondary levels. And so over several years, the actual tech support need at secondary schools has increased dramatically. We've added many different instructional programs that have a technology piece to them, a technology requirement, whether it be adaptive curriculum, testing, at the state level. There's testing at the state level that is all online. So all of those pieces really require somebody to be on hand to service the staff so that they can continue to instruct even when they have issues with devices. If you go to a modern classroom, you're going to find that it's stacked with technology, and that's purposeful to try to help with the instruction. And so they had nobody allocated at those positions or at those levels, or some schools had half-time teachers. Some schools it was not consistent. The principal made the choice about whether or not they could use technology. And as the dollars have decreased, of course, most of that support went back to direct instruction. And so as a part of this one-to-one plan, we used that to really create a comprehensive look at what secondary schools should look like. And we heard loud and clear from schools that they needed some tech support. So we put one person at each of the high schools and a half-time person at each of the middle schools. To address the same issues at elementary school, they have a tech contact that's a teacher, and we increased how much we pay them for that additional support at the school. And then there is a centralized pool of people that help with elementary school issues. You talked about buying a lot of Chromebooks. So Chromebooks have a shelf life, and they run between 5 and 6 years that you can use them. And then they actually are turned off by Google. They don't provide any additional support. They go away. And so we have stacked this plan so that the money that we're putting into it each year deals with each of those when those devices become obsolete. And so what you see in the plan before you right now is the amount of devices that we need to replace next year that are obsolete and expire. And so I don't know if Dr. Stock or somebody from the instruction team would like to talk a little bit about the additional software that's been implemented and how that impacts instruction.
We do have a variety of instructional software packages, and one thing I've learned about the technology as the years have gone by, once you really start down these roads, you don't really back up. I mean, you can't just get rid of all the technology and say we're done with it. But what we are trying to do is study the instructional impacts more carefully. Had it not been for the technology that we had, this pandemic would have been far, far worse for a vast majority of our folks. Going forward, we're trying to figure out where that fits in. And clearly, there isn't a need for one-to-one for every elementary child, and we're working through not doing that. So we're working through what the instructional plans are at those levels. So, I would just say everything Mike just said. So.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Mm-hmm.
So something like, my sense is that we turned to iReady and some other software during the pandemic because there was online learning. It's something that the district is continuing to use this year. If we're looking at restructuring, maybe I'm asking you to reveal too much or more than you already know. Is that something that you would imagine being continual, or is that, as in like once you start, you don't get rid of them, or is that something that will be reevaluated?
Well, through the president to Member Lessons, iReady is a specific example. While it was very, very useful on the reading portion during the time of the pandemic, it is still a vital part of the current new iReady math program. So it's still supplementing the math piece, but it is no longer a requirement on the ELA and the reading side at all. So that's an example of where we needed it at the time, and now we're moving away as it's not as appropriate anymore. But it's still a piece of the math, the new math curriculum.
And Madam President, and to that point, though, each year we do like to reevaluate whether they're apps, programs, things like that, to kind of do like, yep, this is a green light, we should continue to do it. This is kind of a red lighted thing, we probably should stop, and then yellow, we have to reconsider. But you missed the time when we needed to move to a new grading system and Q system, and taking an old piece of technology away because a new one is replacing it by the company, not us, takes time and energy. And so all of those little mini changes take time to get with staff, but we do like to make them and take things off the table, because the bottom line is if they're not adding value to the work that we need to do to support student learning, whether that be on the back end at business, nutrition, or instructional, we shouldn't be doing it.
Okay. Other questions?
Member Lessons?
Yeah, thank you. I also spoke at my meeting with ASD administration about ventilation, and I think that the ventilation expenditures are a wise use of ESSER funds, and I think they reflect the community values. One question that I had as a follow-up, however, is what are we doing for, if anything, for carbon dioxide detection in our classrooms? Because it's my understanding, loosely, that understanding of parts per million within a classroom environment could allow us a better approach towards sort of respiratory viruses in general. As we shift towards COVID being an endemic thing, there's a whole suite of other things, and we have this new fancy DeSigo system. So, do we have the ability to, or interest and commitment to carbon dioxide detectors in all of our classrooms? And if so, would they connect with the pivot towards electronic monitoring that our DeSigo system can do? Dr. Bishop.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I will defer to, is that correct? Tom Rock, Chief Operating
Well,
Officer.
I can tell by our look, we haven't done a detailed engineer assessment
Yeah.
or evaluation, and I don't think anybody can wing that, frankly.
That's correct. Yeah, and again, and I know, Member Lessons, we've had some conversations about just the HVAC systems in our schools, that our goal is to ensure that those systems are operating as designed, and as a part of that movement of air and filtration and bringing in fresh air, that a part of that is vacating any buildup of CO2 that might be building up in the air. To Jim's point, we haven't done any specific analysis on that, but I feel confident that insofar as our systems work as designed, that we're replacing filters, that fresh air is coming in as intended, that it's not an issue.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions right this minute, we thank you guys for your time. And we're moving on to our, I don't think, who do we have? Okay, we are now on item I, public testimony. And we have one person, Niall Sherwood Williams. Can you hear me?
Yes, Madam President, can you hear me?
I can. You have 3 minutes, and welcome.
Hi, yes. Through the President to the Anchorage School Board, with regards to the latest $110 million bond buying scheme, as will be placed on the April 5th, 2022 ballot. I'd like to strongly caution members of the board when we continue to put out these bonds before the taxpayers. We know they vote them forward at about an 85% clip. It's time the Anchorage School District begin to exercise its fiduciary responsibility to properly manage the taxpayers' funds and to stop mismanaging them. I think back to a couple months ago when we had to have a $1.8 million emergency passage for a communication system at West and Romig High School. Start managing the funds more properly. That was obviously dilapidated and needed to be fixed years ago. With regards to through the chair, Member Lessons' comment that individual students would need to be put on life support. I would like to caution members of that body.
Order, I don't know what you're talking about.
It's all right, Kelly, I got it. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Williams,
can I continue my testimony free from interruption and prior restraint, please?
We paused your time. You may continue, but please do not
I'm not here for debate with the board.
Exactly,
if you'd like
you're
to
not.
debate, I'm happy to debate. Right, so
Mr.
I'd appreciate it if I could just continue my time without
I'm
prior
going
restraint,
to continue
please.
your time. Please refrain from attacking any board member or misrepresenting. You may continue.
Right, so through the chair, Member Lessons earlier in the meeting about 5 minutes ago was discussing the fact that we have an emergency among kindergarten, first and second graders that have just begun school while wearing the coercive medical device over their nose and mouth, preventing them access to being able to see the subtle cues of communication of body language, where up to 92% of communication is actually understood by human beings. The children are on life support because of the policies of the Anchorage School Board members and its superintendent. Pay attention, Anchorage voters, and please vote accordingly and redress your government in the election on April 5th, 2022. Study the school board candidates. Be sure to have a new school board president after April's election. one that will look out for the interests of all students, and not one that's seeking to have affirmative action through critical race theory to benefit a select few, as happened at the Alaska Association of School Boards meetings. You can check out the video on Must Read Alaska. It was posted. All children are created equal and entitled to equal protection under the law, under the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Your time is up. And we're going to continue on now with item J on our agenda. Superintendent update.
Thank you, Madam President. I just have a few items. I do want to share that February is School Board Appreciation Month, and so we have some nice cards for you, and thank you. We do appreciate your work. Many times it is not very thankful. We have many experiences with that. Also, I do want to honor our school counselors, and thanks for the message this evening. Our School Counselor Week is this week, and they do an exceptional job. Also, in reference to Black History Month, please pay attention on Twitter and other things about the activities going on in our schools. But I also want to give a shout out, and we will assess these to see how they can fit in with what we teach kids. But the local, the local inputs and leadership and activity of our local Black leaders in the commercials that Shiloh and the Anchorage Black Caucus publish are phenomenal and really demonstrate the input and expertise of our Black community creating and building a better Anchorage. And so I just love learning about the people who built things long ago before we knew their name in Anchorage. So I want to give a shout out to those commercials and hope our kids watch them. Not watch TV necessarily, but we'll try to get them that message. And then also I would like to thank MJ and his team, Lisa Miller especially, for the wonderful presentation of Denali Awards tonight, as well as the reception and the entire team that really supports the work of the budget and all that we do here. So I just am full of gratitude myself. Valentine's Day is coming up soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. So we are now at school board and administration comments.
Do we have questions for the superintendent?
Oh, sure you may.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for your follow-up in the Board Connect regarding the report and the testimony we heard at our last meeting from a student that was very concerned about some inappropriate lyrics and music that was being played during passive time at Betty Davis East Anchorage High School. And the follow-up said they had figured out how to isolate the Alaska Native Culture Charter School, which is much younger students, from that music. But I remain concerned about the actual music. Has that been addressed?
Through the president to Member Donnelly, yes, I believe that in that write-up, it was that the administration is reviewing the music. It did come from students and then went to the admin, and I believe administration is beginning to review that music as well. And I'm not sure, just to be correct, they are working on isolating the intercom, but I'm not sure that that is totally completed by now. But in that write-up, it was the review of administration. We'll take a look at those songs.
Thank you for that. I had one more question.
Sure.
I'm trying to understand how we're evolving with our protocols regarding the implementation of school masking. And we know with the Omicron variant, it's much less deadly than the Delta variant, but it's more contagious. So you have a much higher number of reported cases, but a fewer number of actual hospitalizations related to it. How are we adjusting how we're measuring the high risk zone determination, given that fact?
Through the president to Member Donnelly, actually we are lucky to have an RN who's a director here work at Providence. So we get a report every day about the hospitalizations. And with the large amount of cases, the actual hospital did go up their cases. They are dropping, their patients with COVID also went up. So they were getting full. And they are dropping, though, which is a good sign daily, as well as our cases here. So we do take a look at the capacity of the hospitals because we're a partner in that. Cases aren't necessarily specifically looked at for us. It really is the capacity. As you know, I put out a letter in the Board Connect that was sent from the commissioner and Dr. Zink, and we've had conversations. I've had personal conversations. And as you brought this up, we really are talking about adjusting as cases go down and medication elsewhere is adjusted. We have so many layers that I believe it's appropriate to bring back to the board. I have spoken to several board members about this, and there's still some trepidation, if you will. So we want to present a good argument at the right time. Part of that argument is the cohorting of young children. And I've spoken to Dr. Zink about this as well. As, kids go into their classroom and they're with that classroom and, then they go to lunch and then recess and whatnot, but they're really generally with the same amount of kids inside. And so it isn't like a high school that is thousands of kids where they interact. And so we're really taking a look at what are the steps of easing instead of just pulling the Band-Aid off of the mitigation steps. And some of them we have already done, such as not really, if a child's sick, we'll test them, but we're not keeping close contacts home. Other school districts are still doing that. We are not. And so we've moved some of these through these mitigation efforts and lightened them up and demonstrated that they work. And so we work together as a team every day at a huddle, studying what can be done. I have asked our directors to work with our principals to talk about that and start socializing that at their schools, getting feedback so that we can move to the next level as the Omicron continues to drop in cases.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear you mention that distinction for the youngest children. The World Health Organization, most European nations made a distinction between 5 and 6-year-olds from other elementary, and they also made a distinction between elementary and secondary. And I think there's more and more growing evidence of the appropriateness of having a different standard for the youngest children when we're going to mandate masks for them versus older children. So I'm really hoping the administration will keep that in mind as you come forward with recommendations for us. Because it may be appropriate to end the mandatory masking for the youngest kiddos before others.
Through the president, absolutely. That is my discussions with our state health folks, and that's what we're looking at. It's not only parents. There are teachers who are concerned about that as well, and feel that we're coming to a time that they want to see children's faces and children to see their faces as they learn and grow in Anchorage School District. So that is in consideration, and we look to adjust it. We did already a little bit adjust, helping out our high schools, and I shared that when they play, not necessarily sometimes in Anchorage, but different places come to Anchorage that may not utilize masks as we have. It's not the children or the coaches or anything that's involved in the activity. A lot of times it's the stands. And I asked principals not to put themselves in harm's way. And we're going to say, this is what we do. Here's a mask, come in. But if someone all the way up in the stands takes it off and there's arguments between people, we really aren't going to spend our time risking the relationship with our own parents as well as fights with others. But those are few and far between. But we have in that area in public, in the evenings, not during the day, lighten that up as well in just regard to responsibility, because it's been really tough on the people who do those games when there's so much public.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Member Donnelly. Any other comments? I'll just let's start. These are your, wait a minute. Any questions for the superintendent? I'm trying to get to our closing comments here. Go on, yes.
Sure. You may or may not have this information accessible. It's my understanding just from looking at the metrics that we have for ASD that there have been somewhere around 6,000 cases of COVID since the semester started. Do you have a sense of, and maybe the day by day, the number of cases that we're getting each day, maybe reflecting changes in the community? Those numbers are going down.
Yes.
I'm wondering if you have a sense of what the impact on, could you tell us a little bit more about the changing impact of Omicron on staffing? If you could just sort of give us a picture. I imagine January was very hard on our staffing. Does February look like it's shaping up to be a little bit easier?
It is absolutely easier. Yes, absolutely. Hands down easier. And we have those numbers of staff out and positions covered, and we can provide those data for you in the Board Connect. And so that is what we do, watch that in our ability to cover classes. And that was a reason too, to continue some of our mitigation. But we continue to do PCR testing, but very few are coming back as positive compared to where we were in last month.
Okay, any other questions for superintendent? Now we're going to move on to comments. Board member comments. Let's start to my left. I'm going to start with Ms. Shaw.
I don't think I have any.
Okay, yeah. All right. Thank you. We're glad you're here always. Member Wilson.
Yes, so I wanted to recognize, thank you, Elizabeth, National School Counseling Week. I appreciate the work that our counselors do in the schools to support our students, our families, and other staff members. So I appreciate all of that work. So thank you for highlighting that. I really appreciate it. I knew it was, actually, I thought it was National School Counseling Month. So you narrowed it down just a little bit, but that's okay. I'm going to continue to say thank you to our counselors. I also want to recognize that it's Black History Month, and it is the opportunity to honor the contributions and sacrifices of African Americans who have helped shape the nation. So as Dr. Bishop said, please take a look at the different opportunities that the school district as well as the community has to honor our African American heritage folks. And I also wanted to say I was at Central Middle School today and had the pleasure of listening to the presentation of some 8th grade school business partnership students. And at Central, those students in that classroom is working on starting a cafe. And so they went through their entire presentation, but there's 2 things that I really appreciated from their presentation, and everything was very professional. They were dressed professionally, which was really nice. They spoke very clearly. Their presentation was very well lined out. You all would have been extremely proud of these students, as I was. But 2 things that they highlighted was what they intended to learn from their successes and what they intended to learn from their failures. So I really appreciated that, because in anything we do, our failures oftentimes teach us even more than our successes do. So and the teacher said, that's one of the things that one of our students said that should be added to the presentation. So I just really appreciate the work that's being done in our school business partnership programs. That's near and dear to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Wilson. Member Higgins.
Getting through quick today. I think I have 3 hours and 45 minutes. So we'll go ahead and try to address it completely. I want to start off just by sharing a story that yesterday in the newspaper with West High School. I think it's very moving to me, and the staff there needs to be recognized for what they did. It involved a gentleman, Mr. Billy Ray Macon Sr., who 60 years ago when he graduated, they stamped on his diploma the statement, this student met minimum state requirements. Pretty big, diminishing the significance of what he went through. And the story goes on to talk about how he had a young family. He was working at Elmendorf. He was walking to school. He didn't have transportation. And the fact that he even got through it was pretty remarkable. And then to see that and not wanting to display that was really insulting. Okay, I can picture that. Well, Superintendent Gustafson, Swin Gustafson, saw it, or is it wrong? And he had an opportunity to
he is presently the principal and I'm the superintendent, but I was with him. Yeah, I was present with him and we presented
I was going to start this by saying, if I make a statement here, I want to invite the superintendent to correct me. I didn't think it would be that serious. And to make her day, she can go ahead and correct me all she wants. Thank you. You can join it with the...
Well, I don't know if you saw the Snickers, so...
I appreciate that, though. I didn't mean it. But the principal saw the wrong here, took the action, and when the family brought him there to get a new diploma, he had the auditorium with students. He had the cheerleaders. He had the choir, and the superintendent Bishop, was there and gave him a new diploma. And what moves me about this, it's a fairness to him, but it was something else. One, is never too late to correct a mistake, and that's the message that went out to the students. But what's also there is the diploma is a milestone that carries with you the rest of your life. And I like that message. I thought it was really good. And so I really appreciate that. Just a thank you to the students and the other notes in regards to school board celebration. This is a difficult job because we don't know whether we're right or wrong. Many of the decisions, we're trying to do the best we can. And a lot of us stay awake at night sometimes wondering, did I do everything I could for every student? Because it makes a difference in their life going forward, and that's a tough position to be in. And when it comes to the counselors, I'll share a story that no one else was on the school board then, but when we had an incident at South High School, in which a student had made like Columbine type threats, and the determination wasn't real at that point. People intervened correctly and they moved quickly on it. But we had a workplace expert presentation up here. And the workplace presentation said, police are valuable in schools, but the most important safety issue is counselors. Identifying students at risk before the incident is more important than reacting to it afterwards. And they put the emphasis out there how important counselors were to the safety of schools being number one beyond anything else we got in schools. So thank you. Appreciate it. It means a lot. And I'll share that we will be trying to persuade legislators to provide as much support as they can to schools, public schools. Remember, we had a presentation that talked about how last 10 years, we got 70 million less than what we had 10 years ago when you consider inflation. And last 5 years, we've gotten zero increase in the base student allocation, and with a declining in student population, we're talking about reductions that are significant. We talk about 2 years from now, 67 million. And hopefully that the legislatures respond. But they are our elected officials, so I encourage everyone in the public to let your elected officials know what you want. You make the difference. I've seen it before when the public really got engaged in it and lobbying the elected officials, telling them what they want. It really makes a difference, and I encourage that greatly. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Higgins. What I would like to say is when Mr. Macon's granddaughter posted, who is a friend of, I've known the family forever, but when she posted that, it took less than 5 minutes. As quick as I could send a text to Dr. Bishop, and then to Mr. Gustafson, it was done like that Thursday night. And so we just needed to, actually, it wasn't even Thursday night because his birthday was Friday, and they were traveling to Anchorage on Tuesday. So it took some teamwork. And I think the school did an awesome job, and it is a heart warmer. So I agree with you on that. So thanks for sharing that. Member Holloman, do you have any closing comments?
Just simply, continued thanks to everybody involved. I think it's been a long, hard year. And of course, we're just in the middle of February, and there's quite a bit. This is a time of year as a teacher that it usually gets hard because it's been a long time, and there's still a pretty good run to go before you get to the end. But I think over and over, everybody's had to adapt and come up with new ideas, do more than they ever had to do before. And ultimately, when you get down to it, it's the people in our buildings and the people that are doing the work every day that make it work for kids. I also did want to second Member Donnelly's comment about how our mitigation efforts may come off in layers. I know a lot of people are ready for them to be over. I think everyone on the board is. But I do think people have a certain fear of just like a sudden change where so many things go away. And if the administration's able to gently release the mitigations that we have, and get a little closer to normal with each passing week or so, I think that's going to go a long way to energizing people as we can do it safely. Right now, I do think a lot of people still have concerns that while the numbers are dropping, they're still high. The numbers are dropping, and we're not absolutely sure if that's because people are testing at home and not reporting positives versus just what we're having reported as dropping. But certainly it is about to come down, and hopefully this time it will stay down for good. So again, just thank you to everyone for all the work that's been done, and we'll keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go, Member Jacobs, your closing comments.
Thank you, Madam President. Wanted to congratulate all the Denali Award winners, and some really inspiring stories came out of the presentation. So thank you to the winners and the staff who facilitated the presentation. I'll echo the recognition of staff continuing to move education forward in our district. I know or at least I just found out today, it's a school board appreciation month, but I think the thanks really need to continue to be directed at our staff. Regarding future meetings here this month, the 15th is our communications and governance committee meetings at 3:30 and 4:30. Finance is on the 23rd at noon for those looking for even more local government entertainment. Thank you, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you. Yes, Member Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam President. As most people know, I have not supported mandatory masking in our schools, and especially not for our youngest students, our kindergartners and first graders. And I've been trying to figure out why the CDC is with its recommendations continuing a mandatory masking is so different than the World Health Organization and many European nations that do not take that same position. And at a recent meeting we had here with representatives of Health and Social Services, that was the point of my question when I asked them, what's the most persuasive evidence that the CDC has to justify support of mandatory masking of our elementary students? And at the time they cited 3 studies. And so as I was researching these 3 studies, it just happens the Atlantic magazine last week published an article that was highly critical of these same 3 studies that the folks from Health and Social Services referenced that the CDC was relying on. And I would really recommend that article to board members and to the public. It raises a lot of the same points that I have about the World Health Organization's finding a clear dichotomy in the cost benefit ratio for our youngest students, especially our kindergartners and first graders, and also for our elementary students. And that's why many European countries never went with masking, especially for elementary students. But they did an analysis of those same 3 studies that the folks mentioned to us last week. And I don't want to take your time going through them right now, but they kind of really discredited them, saying they weren't a sufficient basis to do the kind of things that the CDC is recommending. I'll just say that one quote is, therefore, the overall takeaway from these studies that schools with mask mandates have lower COVID transmission rates without mask mandates than the ones without mask mandates is not justified by the data that's been gathered. So this is not some conservative magazine. This is Atlantic magazine. This is, very mainstream or even left-wing magazine that's talking about this. And so I really do think it's time for us to take revisit these issues. They did find that the studies that were out there did suggest that there was a correlation between teacher masking and the reduction of COVID positivity, even though student masking did not have a significant effect. And one of the other things they concluded is mental, and we've talked a lot about this tonight, mental and social emotional outcomes are hard to observe and measure, and they can take years to manifest, and they're very serious potential impacts upon our youngest kids. So I continue to think that if you're going to impose public health interventions, they should have very, very credible evidence that they work significantly enough. And I'm not saying that there's no efficacy to masks at all. That's not what I'm saying. But they should be significant enough that we also have evidence to say that they're not harmful. And I don't think on balance, right now, the CDC analysis is accurate. I'm going to stand with the European countries and the World Health Organization on this and say it's time to take the mandatory masking off.
Okay, thank you, Member Donnelly. Member Lessons.
I'm not going to have any comments tonight.
Dr. Bishop.
No comment, Madam President.
Anybody over there in the gallery have any comment? They're all shaking their heads. I'd just like to, real quickly, everybody, but being last, everything gets said. So ditto, 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 ditto. And good night. Can we move to adjourn? Okay,
move to adjourn.
Second.